What's up, Fire fam? My name's Kiahonfire and welcome back to New World. Today I'm going to be doing a video that is going to be covering some awesome tips that you should know in New World. So we're going to be going through them. Remember, if you know about one tip, you can always use the chapters below to be able to flick through the different tips and tricks I have in this video. So let's get into it. Now, I've seen a lot of people miss out on this, but there is actually, in most towns, there is a honey pot that you can go ahead and gather. Most people will gather from these once or twice and then never really touch them again in the blue moon. But it is actually important to go and gather from these because they could be made into better food. It's also really good to go and milk the cow. There's not cows in every town, but you can go ahead, if you're in a town and you see a cow, go ahead and milk it. You can make these into really good food sources, especially the energized stuff. You can go ahead and use that, and you actually are able to get a lot of this to be able to use within these craftings. Or you can just make the normal food and make absolutely loads of it. This is going to be really handy for the expeditions and overall just going to be great. If you're in a faction that owns a little area on the map or several of these areas on the map, you can actually go ahead and claim resources at most towns within your faction. So for instance, my faction owns First Light, Monarch, and it also owns Hoard. Now Hoard has a fiber cart. You can go there and just gather fiber out of this cart for free. Monarch has an iron supply, so I can go ahead and just gather some iron via that just on a quick whim, which is nice to add. And then First Light I actually really do like because it gives you veggies and food, so you can use this for food crafting. Getting veggies can be a bit more of a tedious task when it comes to New World, so I actually quite like the ability to be able to just go and get one of these food carts now and again, or a gathering cart, and just claim the stuff out of it while you're in the city. Doesn't take 5 seconds, great to do. Do keep an eye out for them. And remember, different towns offer different carts. Some of them will offer the same one. For instance, Cutlass Keys and Brightwood offer lumber, and they have the same thing in them, but you might find different ones that will offer different things. Crafting is important for XP and town board quests. Now, I've had a friend that's been able to keep up and level with me just basically by doing these and focusing on these instead of doing like all the side quests and main quests and traveling everywhere. They've been able to focus very well and keep up and level with me. It's important for crafting because if you do bulk crafting, of course, you're going to get more XP by crafting a lot of things. And then those lot of things can be used to trade into the town board. And crafting quests or gathering quests for the town board actually will give you some of the best XP sources in the game. So it is very good to do these and stock up. I mean, you get the timber quests, and you can also get those quests where you can trade in those iron equipments or anything like that, or boxes of stuff. That's also a very awesome quest to do, especially for XP. This is going to be a very good thing to do overall. Piling up quests sounds like a really annoying thing to go through on your journal to be able to do, right? But it's actually worth doing. If you go to different locations and you just gather town projects, or you get the side stories as well, you could even do that. Faction missions as well, you can also do in your favorite places. But town missions are ones that you kind of do want to stack. The reason for this is you're going to have to go to lots of locations anyway. So if one of these missions wants you to, kill something or get a certain thing from some place, and you're just traveling around and you can get this done without even focusing on it or thinking about it, then this is actually a really good way to get XP and standing and all of that good stuff. So it's always worth to kind of just get a bulk load of town projects. You're going to be able to get even more if your faction decides to claim a city or someone else's faction. You can get a bit from there as well. So if you just keep piling up these quests, any kill quests you have, anything like that, is always nice because you can, just gather that up over time without having to focus on it. So that's a really good thing to do. Picking a larger company is better than having lots of small ones. This is because when you have small ones, then you don't really have much teamwork. You actually need to do a lot of teamwork in New World to be able to move your town forward. So usually you'll see a lot of people making really small kind of companies, and that's not really a good idea. It's best to join a mid-sized to larger company. Say you can see this one, Asylum, might be worth joining, or one with more members. because you need to do a lot of work to be able to claim an area. In the start of New World, your map's going to look like a lot of these white spaces, and the companies will have to actually gain up to 100k gold in the treasury to be able to claim one of these areas. And that's going to be very hard to gather in a small company. Also, when you come to here, you're going to have to spend even more and going to need a lot of help from this area. Because you're going to have to, well, spend stuff to actually make upgrades. And as you can see, some of these upgrades are very expensive. Now, in New World, you're going to see these notes everywhere. You should actually read them every time. As you can see, that one just gave me 158 XP. So if you see them in places, you might as well pick them up, because that's some free experience that you're going to gain just by quickly just hitting select on it, and that is all you need to do. In New World's early game, you're going to have options to fast travel, but they're going to cost you azoth, and you might not want to do that early game because you're not going to be able to gather much azoth. A way to fast travel early game is to hit escape, game menu, and respawn. This will take some durability out of the clothes you wear, the clothes in your inventory, and your weapons, so do bear this in mind. But early game, you're going to be switching these things around constantly anyway, so losing that durability doesn't really actually matter too much. So having that respawn option to be able to respawn back to the nearest town or back to your camp that you've made is actually a really handy way to do things. If you don't want to lose the durability and you're higher level though, of course you can always fast travel to places. Remember, if you're traveling to places within your faction's claim or anywhere like that, it's going to be a cheaper cost than traveling to somewhere that's claimed by somewhere else. And then of course you've got to take into regards of distance as well. The further away you go, the more it's going to cost. So that's all tricky and stuff. So if you just want to save some time and just respawn, and sometimes it might be just best to do that instead of traveling along with the azoth. So that's a way you can fast travel in this game. Especially early game, this is absolutely worth doing. You don't really miss out on much. And remember, I guess this ties into my next point about dismantling stuff. In the game, you have a bunch of weapons, you get a bunch of gear, but over time the durability is lost. You can repair this by holding R and mouse button, and then you just repair it with some coins and repair parts. These repair parts are actually got out of the items you dismantle. So you can salvage something and it's going to give you repair parts back. So sometimes you can just go ahead and scrap a bunch of the stuff you don't need. But sometimes as well, you got to bear in mind, sometimes this stuff is actually worth selling instead at the market. So you got to kind of balance it out. If you want to scrap stuff for more repair, you're always going to need repair, especially when you get into expeditions. But also if you want a way to get money as well, sometimes it's worth selling some of these items on, as long as the trade tax in your area isn't too high. Otherwise, selling things with a really high trade tax can be more of a loss than a win, really. So just bear those things in mind. Now we're moving on to player housing. Now player housing is actually something that is worth investing in as long as you've got a decent amount of cash. But there is a little thing I will warn you on here. There are lots of really nice properties that cost a lot of gold to own, and you do need to watch out for these ones, because of course the bigger the house, the higher the cost, and also the higher amount of taxes you're going to have to pay on your house, because you will have to pay those about weekly. So you ideally want to go for, depending on how much you're going to use your place for storage or whatever, for a beginner's first time, I would go for one of the smaller houses. You will get a discount at some point once you earn enough standing in some areas. So this one for me, before I bought a house, was about 2k, and that would have been a really good starting house. Now the reason I do like having houses in New World is because it gives you another fast travel point. And this is a fast travel point where you can actually just travel from anywhere. You don't have to be in a town or a city to be able to get to your house. It does have a cooldown of 4 hours, but it is a really nice option to have there when you need it, instead of either respawning or using your azoth to be able to travel around the map, or just running miles, which you ideally don't want to do. So a small house could be really good, such as the one like this. Was only about 2,500 as my first time buy. And you can see it's got quite a lot of space. It even has a little balcony. You can decorate this how you like and store things inside. But I thought it was a really decent, nice house to start out with. And like I said, the tax that you pay is going to take into consideration. Remember, your company or your faction is also going to contribute to the amount of property tax that you're probably going to have to pay. And if it's not for you, of course, you can always abandon the house. But you can also have buffs in here. Fast travel is really useful. And it's a really nice feature. If you get a cheap house, this can be a really good way to have a fast travel point. Now, in New World, you get something called territory standing. This is something you're always going to earn going around the place. And it is actually worth to know about, because territory standing can also be used as a way to gain a lot of experience. And you do want to optimize your territory standing depending where you are. For instance, you actually want to have a hub town, and this is where you want to kind of focus where you would want to put upgrades in, such as gathering speed or storage. For instance, my hub is Hoard at the moment. I'm using that as my storage area, although I have been testing things out a little bit, so my setup right now is not exactly optimal. But ideally, you want your hub town. This is your storage gathering, and then perhaps you want somewhere else to upgrade in, a place ideally close to where you are that you can travel to. And that's a really good idea. And then in that turn, you want to focus on your XP and your standing. The standing is going to give you a lot of XP over time, so you can level up and use that as a leveling mechanic. You could do all your kill quests and whatever over there, and that's really going to help. So remember, if you want to up your standing anyway in either of these areas that you're in, you're going to need to do questing, you're going to do killing, gathering, anything normal in New World, kind of like that, to be able to up that standing. And if that gets a bit much, then you can always use another town, I suppose. It would be a good idea later game to also have a town further up as well, nearer the better resources that you could also use. But that's just a kind of suggestion there for you, because then you can focus into two things without having it too much of a mixed basket. And because if you have it too much of a mixed basket, then you're not really optimizing your areas as much. A nice thing to know, though, if your faction does own a couple of territories, then the storage in between those is actually going to be shared, so that's going to be really, really handy. Weapon mastery. You get 11 different weapons so far to choose from in the beginning of New World. This is in the beta phase at the moment, so there may be more added in the future, but for now, this is the selection that you get. So 11 weapons, and you get to select 2 of these to be able to have at all times, and you'll be able to switch them out with each other. Now, a good thing is with these, you do want to be able to get your different masteries quickly, because it's going to help you have powerful abilities on different weapons. Another thing with the weapons as well, it is worth usually having a ranged and a melee. This is because when it comes to PvP combat as such, or just things like, let's say, bison, they run really far away, and you're going to be trying to melee them. It's going to be a very frustrating experience. So sometimes it's worth specializing in one melee, one ranged, unless you just kind of want to spice things up and have a go with the double melee build. But that's not really optimal when it comes to, of course, PvP fighting, because when it comes in combat, sometimes this person might be just a little bit further away from you, specializes in range. They're absolutely going to destroy you unless you can get into the close space and destroy them. So it's not always ideal having a double melee build or a double range build, in fact, for that. So I definitely recommend you try them all out, though, and have a go at them, see which ones you like and which ones you don't, and then figure out ones you want to mastery in. Did try a double melee build out. I was using the hatchet and the warhammer. I'm really enjoying those together, because it's kind of like a stun, and then you have your DPS going on there. But I think what I'm probably going to do is I'm either going to pick one of those in the future and then have the ice gauntlet to have that range, because it does get very annoying when it comes to tasks as getting those skitty little creatures. And of course with that, like I was saying, when you begin on a weapon, you do want to unlock 3 of these big abilities that you can do to lock in. If you do enough work on this and get it to level 20, you'll finally be able to get the ability you get at the bottom, and this can be really powerful. So figuring out what you want to use about low to mid game is really good for you, because then you'll be able to focus down on one of these abilities that you have in any of the weapon classes, and then you'll be able to do that really powerful attack or whatever you need within these different weapon masteries that you have available. If you're constantly switching around, the likelihood of you being able to get to level 20 on many of your weapons is going to be very unlikely, because you're going to be leveling into several different ones. So focusing is good. You could probably focus into 3 different ones, or depends how you want to play. But definitely try and figure out what you want to use, then focus onto it, because then that will really help boost you when it becomes the higher and mid game, and you're going to be able to unlock that level 20 mastery, and that's going to be incredibly helpful depending on what you want to do, because these final perks are just awesome. But anyways, that's all I have for today. Thank you for watching, I love you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!